Hi everyone, in this video we're looking at one of the nicest boats on the canal network, owned by Kenton and Linda and their daughter Philippa, and we'll have a really good look round it and I hope you enjoy. Well, for a change it's over to Kenton now and not me. I'll just do the filming and the expert will tell us everything. So on with the vlog.
Good morning, this is a Lister JP3. It's got 3 cylinders. It was built in 1942 for the War Department. It went to be a generator set on a World War II searchlight and radar site. Then after the war it went to be a generator on a farm, and then Steve Hudson bought them up and prepared them for narrowboats. Obviously brass cylinder heads on, starter motor puts on them because it used to be hand start. It's only 18 horsepower engine, but it's all about the torque, and it drives this large flywheel around here that through the PRM gearbox runs through the drive shaft to the propeller. So all the original features still on it other than the hand start. So these you fill with grease, these little caps, and then before you start it you give these half a turn, put a little bit of grease through to the valve pistons that are underneath the caps here. When you start it, turning those just puts a little bit of grease down on the piston rods there and helps them, keeps them lubricated, keeps them going. As you see in the bottom of the sumps here, there's a little bit of engine oil that drops down the cylinders into the rods, keeps everything lubricated and working nice. And then this side it's all dry, but that's where your fuel's coming into the engine. Pump the fuel up from the fuel tank up into the day tank, and there's a little measure there so I know how much fuel's in or how much I've used, and that's just gravity fed down to one fuel filter there that goes through the injectors into the engines. Water tank just pushes round, little impeller pump pushes it round, heats the hot water in the hot water cylinder. At the sides obviously oil here just to check the oil with a dipstick, and then I've got some buttons here that you push in to take out all the compression from the engine. They were used when it was hand start because it takes the compression out. It's a lot easier to kick the engine over. With the electric start you don't tend to need them. And then on this side there's 3 knobs that you can turn, and they effectively double the size of the cylinder. Again, on canals you don't really use them, but on rivers when you're running the engine hard it just makes the cylinder capacity a lot larger. So brass exhaust on this one through the roof. It's driven through 2 rods here that we'll have a look at when we go through to the boatman's cabin. This one's attached to the speed wheel that obviously adjusts the speed of the engine, and then this is attached to a lever that adjusts the gears. It's either forwards, neutral or reverse. So behind the engine is the boatman's cabin, or a modern take on it that Steve Hudson did. This is where the family would have originally lived when it was a working boat. So you've got your cupboard space up here with your Roses and Castles painted on. For storage, this one drops down to be the kitchen table with what was traditionally the larder behind it. And this drawer underneath the table was often called a crumb drawer because after you'd used the table and your larder you tipped it up and all the crumbs fell into the bottom. And beneath the cupboards there's the drop down double bed, cross bed, that traditionally the owner or the boatman and his wife would have slept in, and then this bit along here would have been a day bed for crew to sleep when they were rotating through the shifts. Then right at the back of the boat there's a traditional Epping stove. There's lots of different makes, and this is obviously what was used for all the cooking and heating on the boat when it was a working boat at the back. Then as we come up, at the top there's a ticket drawer. That's where the working boatman would keep his worksheet with all what he's paid for and what he's being paid to do. And then underneath those we've got 4 brass bed knobs. It's thought that the working boats had the brass bed knobs on there just to add a bit of light and a bit of glamour to the inside of the boat, a bit like the Roses and Castle paintwork. It just brightened the inside up. And then in the centre of the boat, also that acts as the step to get out onto the rear counter, is the coal box, and that's obviously where they kept the coal to feed the fire. So at the back here we have the gear lever in effect, and the speed wheel are connected to the engine. So it's just a simple case of forwards for forwards, in the middle it clicks for neutral, and then pull it back to go reverse. Unlike a traditional Morse control, it does need a little thinking about. That's the speed wheel, controls the speed of the engine, and again Morse code, you bring it back to neutral and then put it in reverse, operating the speed wheel. If you're going along and you need to suddenly stop, you've got to reduce the revs on the engine, let the engine die down, which takes a couple of seconds, into neutral, and then pull back into reverse, and then a bit more power to engage reverse. So it needs a little bit more thinking about than a normal Morse control. So this is the air intake for the engine. There's no filters or anything like that. In fact, there's no filters other than the fuel filter down this side of the engine here. There's no filters at all. The oil, there's a little scavenger gauze filter at the bottom of it, but that's all there is on these old engines. So to start the engine, just give these little nuts here half a turn. As we said before, put a bit of grease through the rods, and then it's just a simple case of turning the engine. There's no preheating or anything on these engines, you just turn the key.
Well, what can I say but wonderful, absolutely wonderful. Kenton, Linda, Philippa, you quite rightly are proud of your lovely boat. There will definitely not be many nicer than that on the network. Very, very special. So, that's another one of our vlogs done, and I really thank you all for watching. And I have one final word before I go, and that is brilliant.